Hello and welcome to this video. This is about how to deal with a downswing. So I've had this topic on my mind for a while now, and I think it's really important for people who are either getting into poker or are in poker but maybe thinking about going professional, or for people who are in the middle of a very bad downswing right now to know that there is a way out. It's not indefinite. So first I'm going to establish some key difficulties we have in as poker players. So poker is a game of skill plus luck, as we all know, which means being the best player doesn't mean you're going to win. On the short and the medium term, that is. Major downswings are inevitable. So the way variance works means that it is inevitable that you're going to lose a substantial amount of buy-ins, at least at some point, if you play enough, which you'll have to if you want to become a professional. Downswings can take a huge toll on a person's well-being, because if you identify with being a poker player, that means that you take pride in it and you want to be good at it. So when it starts to go badly, it's easy to connect those dots that the fact that you're failing at poker means that you are a failure, and that's not okay because it's not in your control. And also there's a lot of ego in the poker community, which deters people from seeking advice and admitting that they need help, because it feels like you're admitting to being a failure. So what makes someone successful as a poker player? Is it moving up the stakes? Is it longevity in the game? Is it consistency of results? I think all of these are good factors we can use. And going back to the point I just made, if you identify as a poker player, and just like any other profession, you want to take pride in being good at it, then it is important to know what makes someone good at it. But the problem with these things are we haven't broken them down enough. So if we see someone that moves up the stakes and is there for a while and is consistent, they're signs that they're a good poker player, but it doesn't tell us how they did it. So we need to break this down further into what really makes them a good poker player. What are the reasons that they're able to do this? And to me, that there's two main reasons. Number one is tenacity. So I like this image of Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill. It's overcoming adversity. Like it's the being determined to get through it no matter what. I think it's very important. The other most important factor is this balance between it says conviction here, but I would call it confidence and humility. So it's knowing that you're good enough to win, but also knowing that you have a lot to learn, and therefore you can be proactive in trying to get better. Or to put it more bluntly, you don't think that you're shit, and you also don't think you're the shit. This is the kind of balancing act we have to hold. When you play poker, the short to long term results we have aren't a reflection of our skill, but it's easy to convince ourselves that it is. And like I said before, if we do this, we can associate it with ourselves and feel like we're exclusively to blame for our results. And we are not in control of our poker results. And also, I'm going to say that again because it's very important. Your poker results are not in your control. This is just a fact. The trajectory is in our control, so we can put ourselves in the best position possible to give ourselves the best chance of winning. But whether we actually win or we don't, in the short to medium term, and even kind of the long term in some ways, is not in our control. So you need to discard this idea that you can be the reason that you win. And just to give an analogy to that, imagine if you have a dice where you roll the number 3, 4, 5, or 6, you win. You roll the 1 or 2, you lose. Sometimes you do just keep rolling a 1 or a 2. It happens. It doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It's just kind of what we sign up for. So I have a little thought experiment here. I want you to look at this MTT graph. It's about a 1900 sample, the average buy-in $157, downswing of just over $80,000, so more than 500 buy-ins by this average. What thoughts come to your mind when you see a graph like this? So maybe you react with sympathy because you know it must be a negative experience for that person. Maybe you react with negative judgment because you think they must be a terrible player. I'm not sure, but whatever the voice in your head that reacts to this says, it's the same voice in your head that is going to react to your own failures or subjective failures, whatever it might be. How you judge the world is also how you judge yourself. So I just wanted to point this out because this graph on the left is mine, and so is the graph on the right. But the graph on the left is just like a small time period from the graph on the right. So it's like all of my online MTT accounts across time for up to $2,200 binds, and that's like the worst downswing I've had for online poker. I've had a slightly worse downswing for live poker before, but that's the most buy-in downswing I've had. It's interesting to think about how it must have felt on the very peak of this. So like at the peak and the trough of these downswings, how different it feels as an experience as a poker player for when you're playing, like how easy it is to overcome. Like if we go back to the image on the other slide, like this boulder that you're trying to push up the hill feels like it gets bigger. It gets harder and harder as time goes on. It can kind of feel like mental torture at times, but it's being able to persevere through this that makes a good poker player. So what can we do about this? Step one, you need to take a step backwards. You need to take a break and break the cycle of like what you've been doing to be in this downswing. If you play poker every day, that could just be a few day break. If you play like a few times a week, maybe you need a whole week off. Whatever separates you from the normality of how much you play, just to kind of remind yourself there's a world outside of poker. And in this window of time, the RNG does not have control over your happiness. You get to kind of realize that it's not just about the poker immediate wins and losses that can impact your mindset, and there is more out there. Step two is to review. So you should have a way to record your hands, whether this is a HUD or in live poker if you write them down a lot, even though it can be more difficult. You need to find someone who can help you that's objective, whether that's like close friends or you can hire a coach so they can review a huge sample of all the hands you've played and just see if there's any like glaring big mistakes that you've been making, or maybe that you've just been unlucky, like very unlucky. And what will come from this is either you'll realize that you have been unlucky, that's reassuring, or two, you've got something to work at, because they're going to say, yeah, look, this is what you're doing wrong, you're doing this too much, this is probably a reason why you're losing, or at least why your win rate is lower, and so there's more variance. Also, this is the point to kind of reevaluate if poker is for you. Like it isn't for everyone. It's a tough game to move up the stakes in based on the element of luck, which is a big part of it. So if a more consistent, stable income would result in a happier, more fulfilling life for you, then this is probably the time to figure that out. Okay, so now we want to figure out how to make quantifiable goals. So we've established the poker results are not in our control. So what is in our control that we can actually we can go after? So I've created this sort of this triforce of what I think makes a good poker player, and this is all things that we can attach goals to, which is what's important. So you have volume, and that is your sample size. You have studying, which directly impacts your win rate, and you have your mindset, which directly impacts your consistency. If you want to figure out how to make these daily goals first, I want you to think about what the dream is. And by the dream, I mean, if you wrote a story about your life and anything could happen, what would be the extremes of what would happen in your poker career? What would you write? A good example might be financial freedom for myself and my family, as well as being present to the moment on the journey to that. At least that would be mine, and I think that resonates with a lot of people. So if that's really the dream, how do you get there? So you want to start by making yearly, monthly, weekly, daily goals, and we'll kind of work backwards until you get there. So if you start with yearly, you move to monthly, how often you want to play in a month, how often you want to study, what you want to do to work on your mindset, what that means to do every single day. And because you've attached these things together, the dream is directly attached to your daily habits. So you know by not doing them, you're moving away from it. And by doing it, you're moving towards it. And this creates motivation. Like if you know, like if I play, if I put this 2 hours of work into studying today and this 2 hours of playing, I'm moving closer to this dream. And this dream is what I'm really working towards. This is what it's about. You're exponentially more likely to do it. So I think this is really important. I'm just going to break down a little bit why these factors are so important as individuals. So this is a variance calculator. I'm not sure if everyone's seen one, so I'm just going to explain what it is. You plug in what your win rate is. You plug in the standard deviation, which is the variance. It's plugged in as if this is no limit hold'em 6 max cash, which isn't what everyone plays, but we can still extrapolate from there. And then you plug in a number of hands to simulate. So if you look at this, it's someone with a 5 big blind win rate playing 100,000 hands, this is an example of their different trajectories. So the blue line is like a best case scenario, the red line at the bottom is the worst, and everything in the middle is what can happen. So there's a huge difference between the best and worst case scenario there. It's a difference between winning a lot and actually losing a little bit. And all of this is not in our control at all. These players all have the same win rate. And I just pulled this stat, which is the probability of having a loss after these 100,000 hands, which is surprisingly high, I thought. So if you've got a decent win rate of 5 big blinds and you play 100,000 hands of 6 max, no limit cash, there's more than a 1 in 20 chance that you're going to lose after those 100,000 hands, which kind of blows my mind. And here's another example with 1,000,000 hands. So this is just going to show you how important volume is, because suddenly now there's pretty much a 0 chance that you're going to lose. It's pretty hard to imagine what 1,000,000 hands is. I think 100,000 hands anyone can probably play in a month, like regardless of your schedule. That's very realistic. But obviously 1,000,000 hands, that's going to take you realistically at least like 10 months, right? Maybe you can do it shorter sometimes, but that's a long period of time, and a lot can change in that time, including like how your win rate's going to change a lot in that period of time. Other people's win rates are, your buy-in levels, everything. So, but this is the sort of amounts of hands we need to play before we fully kind of realize close to our win rates. And this is just a bit of advice I thought I'd add. So if you are in a downswing, if you lower your stakes and you lower the average field size, so instead of playing a 109 with 1,000 players, you play a $55 tournament with 100 players. Your win rate is going to increase because it's a lower buy-in, and your variance is going to decrease because of the field size. So you are going to final table more, you're going to win more, and that's just a natural confidence booster, which is always good. Another point to make is that MTTs have even more variance than this. So in a tournament, you have varying stack sizes as well. You have ICM, and you also have like a variety of buy-ins. So for most people that play tournaments, they play like $22 and $55 maybe, and $11, maybe some 109s, like whatever the spectrum of hands of buy-ins that they play is, it varies a lot, and you can easily just run very badly in the biggest ones and run the opposite in the smallest ones, just because like it's again not in our control. So it's just important to kind of bear this in mind. You have to play a lot before you realize your EV. The next most important step is studying. So I learned this from 2 super high rollers that I spoke to independently that are absolute crushers, some of the best players in the world. Both told me that the inflection point in their life when they started to become very, very good at poker, not just good, was when they started to study more than they played. And I'm sure a lot of people would agree with this. It's pretty crucial that you study a substantial amount. You kind of need to get that to at least close to 50-50, or ideally study more. Because studying increases your win rate, and I'm just going to show you the difference it can make if your win rate is bigger. So this is 0.5 big blinds. You can see 43% chance, roughly, and nearly 44% chance that you are going to lose over 100,000 hand sample if your win rate is close to break even. So that's like losing queens against ace king, which obviously happens all the time. If you increase your win rate to 2 big blinds, suddenly only now 26% chance of losing. And then if you become a wizard and make a 10 big blind win rate, this would mean you should probably move up stakes really, but then your win rate is you're pretty much not going to lose over 100,000 hands if you've got a 10 big blind win rate. So that's always reassuring. Yeah, so I'm just going to give you some examples of some really good free content that there is out there. So Raise Your Edge, they have really good free YouTube stuff and some premium paid content. BBZ the same, their free YouTube stuff's really good for MTTs. Patrick Leonard, great free stuff and a great course. Bluff the Spark, great for cash games. And my brother, he makes really good cash game content, very informative. Yeah, so I think it's really important if you're studying on your own. You want to have this approach that, like, everyone's kind of their own echo chamber. So if you're going to see the hands you play as standard, it's kind of natural. That's why you play them that way, at least most of the time. So you need to get into this habit of being your own devil's advocate and to just repeatedly ask why and break down your logic as much as you can. Maybe think that as if you're explaining it to a 10-year-old, like if they just kept saying, but why? Like, I don't understand. Why did you do that? How would you keep answering that question until it couldn't be any simpler? And that's the degree you need to kind of understand stuff until you can fully move past it. And I think this approach can benefit a lot of people. Just to reinforce your ideas behind stuff instead of saying standard and move on. Think, why did I do it? Why is it standard? It's only going to help you improve. Okay, mindset. So this one is a bit more subjective, but I've given kind of a list of suggestions that I think are helpful. So your mindset is your consistency. Your best win rate might be, say, 7 big blinds every 100 hands, but if most of the time you play 5 big blind win rate, and sometimes you play like a 3 big blind win rate, sometimes maybe you break even based on like tilt and all these other factors, your average win rate is going to be substantially lower than your true potential of 7 big blinds. So the better your mindset is, the more consistently you're going to play like your A game, as we call it in the poker world. Okay, so meditation I know has a lot of negative connotations to it for a lot of people. Obviously not for everyone. I gave a picture of a dumbbell here because I saw the analogy once that meditation is like a bicep curl for the mind, and I think that analogy rings true because it's like you're making yourself better at dealing with future problems, whether it's emotional reactions or intrusive thoughts. Just becoming present to the moment, whether it's focusing on your breathing, maybe for some people it's yoga, cooking, gardening, whatever it is, something that you just feel completely focused on and present. It's you'll notice that they're the times that time goes the fastest and you're the happiest. And meditation helps you get into that state more easily and more often. Maybe try and refresh your image of it if you do have negative connotations for it, because I think it can help anyone, and I think it can help everyone, at least in some way. So if there's anything to take away from this video, if you don't meditate, I think just try for 1 week to meditate for 10 minutes a day and see what happens. Like it's pretty much a free roll. I mean, 10 minutes a day for a week is such a small amount of time for a potential new habit, and to me this is one of the biggest things that someone can do to improve their mindset. Okay, this is probably the other biggest thing that I would describe. There is science to back this one up. People that practice gratitude are actually just happier in general. If you think about your circumstances right now, regardless of what they are, in some ways, you are lucky. And there are people in the past, and there's people that are in different parts of the world right now that would love to live the life that you're living. And it's easy to forget that because as humans, we just get used to things very, very easily and very quickly, which is unfortunate. But it's true. So it's important to stay aligned with this fact that you are lucky. And even if you're thinking now, I'm not lucky, here's all the reasons in my head, here's my story why I'm not lucky. It's a free roll to kind of override that and convince yourself that you are, even if right now you don't believe you are. It's a complete free roll to see yourself as lucky, because you'll just start to notice things more, and things will have like this positive lens on them. If you see yourself as lucky, you become luckier. This one is worth trying out if you haven't. And it kind of links to this journaling. So just writing down your thoughts, whether you can write down things you're grateful for, you can write down like habits you want to make. This can help anyone as well. One practice I like to do every so often is write down reasons why a younger version of me who was in going through more unfortunate times would have been proud to become the person that I am today. And I think that's nice to remind yourself of sometimes, like all of the distance that you've gained, because obviously like life is a journey, right? There's a substantial amount of difference between you now and a past you, and there's a lot of ways you can probably find that things have got better for you in some way, or you've grown. I won't go too much in detail for the rest. Routine. It's very good to get your routine in order to practice good habits. Creative outlets. So it's good to, if you're a poker player, it's easy to like eat, sleep, breathe poker. That you are just poker. At least that's what happened to me in the past. So these help separate that identity from just being poker, and to think, I'm also creative. Maybe learn an instrument. Maybe learn to paint or design something. Is very enjoyable as well. Building relationships, so being in a community of people that are supportive and people that share your ideals and can motivate you, and you can help them as well, is extremely good for anyone's well-being. But especially in poker, if you can have a community where, like, if they're going through the downswing, you help them. If you're going through it, vice versa, it's going to help you like leaps and bounds more than probably anything I say, just knowing that you've always got people there. Therapy and mindset coaching. Again, a lot of negative connotations with therapy. Mindset coaching is kind of similar, although it has different connotations to people. It's just someone else that might give you a new perspective on a problem you've got, or maybe just by talking about a problem you've got, you might realize that you found a way to solve it, or you might realize that it's silly. Therapy, I think, can help most people, at least in some ways. And negative visualization. So this is a practice by the Stoics. They would imagine that they would lose all of their things, all of their loved ones, they would become homeless, they would starve. When they would do this practice, the point would be that when they then realize, like, oh, I've got all of these things, it makes you appreciate them more. Everything is temporary. Technically, you could lose everything in a moment's notice at any time. And it's nice to be reminded that it is there to be appreciated because it's temporary. So I think this can be helpful as well. And more so for poker, because if you start a session, it's really good to think, I'm going to lose everything. Every tournament I play, or my cash game, I'm going to lose my free buy-ins, whatever it is. It stops you becoming entitled in some ways. It's very easy to lose a few sessions and then think, I'm due to win. And then when you lose it, it can be a lot harder to deal with. So I think this can be helpful for poker as well. Okay, just to surmise what I've gone over, if you are in a downswing, the most important first step, I think, take a break, take a step backwards, separate yourself from poker temporarily, review, find a coach or someone objective to go through your hands, figure out if you're extremely unlucky, if you're a little bit unlucky, making some mistakes, if you're starting to play terribly, whatever it is. This is something for you to move towards. And the third point, make quantifiable goals, because as we spoke about with whatever your dream is, how you're going to move towards it, if you can't quantify the steps you're making, you just won't do them. Like you need something to tick off to say, okay, I want to play 100,000 hands, so I'm going to play this many hands a week, and I'm going to play this many hands a day, and I'm going to take this day off every week. Whatever it is that works for you, as long as there's a number there and there's a way you can say, yeah, I did it, and you can get that reward of knowing that you've done it, then you're going to identify with the good poker player, which is the mindset we want to be in. And it's going to give you the best trajectory to not being in the downswing anymore. Just to show these 3 points again, the Triforce, as I've made. Volume for sample size, studying for your win rate, mindset for your consistency. These are the 3 pillars of getting out of a downswing and of winning at poker. All the points I've made here are also, it's why poker is such a good metaphor for life. It's this same approach to pretty much everything. It's going through failure, it's figuring out how to deal with it, not letting your ego control you, become entitled, not letting it become so weak that you think you're a failure, that you think you don't deserve anything. It's like this balancing act that we all have to take, and if you can find the right way to get there, that's what people call the winner's mentality. And this is what I think people should strive towards generally, and it's going to cause people to be more happy, it's going to cause people to be more successful, and it's easier said than done, but I hope this video has helped some people. A lot of people tell me when they're going through downswings, but I know it's a lot harder to see a way out when you're in it. It's easy to convince yourself that that's it, like everyone else is doing way better and you're failing. But I'm hoping people can watch this and think it's not kind of the end. There is a way out of this. So yeah, I'm gonna leave the video there. I hope that was helpful for people. And thanks for watching.